When I think of Terry, I do think colorful. His life is like looking through a kaleidoscope. You turn it a little bit, and you see a boy growing up in Vancouver in challenging circumstances with an abusive family, and him surviving, and him experiencing put-downs. So fast forward in life, he invents put-ups for those around him. You turn it a little bit more and you see him graduating from high school and going into the service. And another turn and you see Terry in college. And then his business career, his entrepreneurial spirit, his upbeat, put-up attitude in a successful business experience. And another turn of his colorful life and you see him behind the podium, leading his Rotary Club as president and his Toastmasters Club. What you see when you look through this colorful life of our honoree today is a complex but a simple person in many ways. And what is unusual about him is that he is male, he has deep feelings, and he's willing to share them with the world. This is not common. This is precious. This is unusual and it is precious. He is a gem. If you don't have a kaleidoscope, I encourage you to pick up his book, Squelched. Succeeding in Business and Life by Finding Your Voice. You will read a story of a man who has been a student his whole life, that has surrounded himself with his mentors and has surrounded himself with those that would like to be mentored. He is a student for life and he is a teacher of others. He is a good friend and he has a colorful life. This is the man, Terry Beard.
Thank you, Al. Terry, welcome to being the guest interviewee at your own Rotary Club. You mentioned that Harper Lee, the author of To Kill a Mockingbird, was an influence for you. How so?
Oh, in many ways. I really enjoyed the book. In fact, I was just introduced to the book, To Kill a Mockingbird, which tells you a lot about me. I didn't know about the book until about 6 years ago. I missed a lot of the good writing, the good reading when I was going to school. But I liked the story, how Atticus, the attorney in the story, helps his kids find their voice. And To Kill a mockingbird represents friendship, encouragement, finding the good. And when these children in the book, To Kill a Mockingbird, lost their innocence, they found their voices at the same time, and it was difficult. But the mockingbird always cheers us on.
You introduced us to the term glossophobia. What is that? What is glossophobia and how common is it?
Glossophobia is the fear of public speaking. Phobia, we all know that. It's a Greek word. Fear of something. Glosso is the word for tongue. So many of us lose our childhood, we lose our innocence, we lose our self-confidence, we lose our self-esteem. We're squelched. We wonder why we're shy and bashful. It's because we've been squelched and we've lost our self-esteem and our self-confidence. 75 to 90%, I'm telling you something you already know, 75 to 90% of people cannot get on their feet to speak. They'd rather be in the coffin than give the eulogy.
So how does Toastmasters figure in the path to victory for you and others who have been squelched?
Well, it started with myself to find my voice, and I have 2 sons. And I said, if I don't find my voice, they won't find their voices. So what am I doing to them? Not only to myself. So as I found my voice without saying anything to my 2 sons, they followed my path. They joined Toastmasters, and they got involved. Both of them live in California, one in Berkeley. Loves school so much I can't get him home. He's working, and he went from A's from B's to A's. And I said, how did you do that? He said, it's easy, Dad. When we are in class and you have a professor up there, he or she asks a question, nobody raises a hand, I raise a hand, I think of table topics, it's a minute or two response, and sure enough, when I send in my papers, the teacher recognizes my name and says, Malcolm Gabriel, you participate. He graduated #1 from Berkeley, and he attributes it to Toastmasters and his ability to become a public speaker. So I want to share that victory with everyone. I want everyone to find their voice, and if we all have a voice, we have a better world. Peace.
So in this room are business people like yourself who are leaders and managers, either presently or they soon will be, including leaders of not-for-profit and educational enterprises. What would you like all of us that I've just described to take away from Squelched?
If we want to be great leaders and help other people find their voices and be successful in business, the first place we need to start is with ourselves. And when we do that, we become more clear, reading, writing, and arithmetic. We learn new words as we do at Toastmasters each week. We incorporate them into our everyday parlance, vocabulary, and we feel better about ourselves. We enliven others by enriching our own lives. We speak with clarity, and people are persuaded. And it's just a better feeling for everybody. And through that, we develop a sense of connectivity with the people we're working with, those people who are working for us, if you will, and we have a sense of community. And I know we share this not only at Rotary on Tuesday noons, but it's really special Wednesday mornings, Portland Rotary Toastmasters. I wouldn't know Ray North if it weren't for Toastmasters. I've gotten to know Jerry Elliott in a really great way. We spent some time in Paris last year. We never would have done that if it hadn't been for Toastmasters. And Mike Pendergast, you're here, aren't you? I remember a few years ago, we got in a little bit of a verbal spat, a kerfuffle. Would that be correct, Mike? And we found a little distance. And so we talked one day about Toastmasters, and in the last year, 2 years, he's been coming to Toastmasters, and we've developed a great friendship. So now, 1st of July, Mike is our new leader, and I look up to him because he gives it his all, and he's developing himself as I continue to develop myself, and it's shared with everybody in our Toastmaster group.
So if we look further out, what do you see the role of parents, teachers, and other influencers to develop confident children with healthy self-images?
Al Jubitz and I talked about this a little over a year and a half ago after work. Al had been looking at the manuscript that we created, and he said something I hadn't heard from anybody else. He said, you know, in writing this book and talking about helping people find their voices, it's done through encouragement and support and a safe harbor. And in the process of doing this, we're going to sensitize the parents and the teachers, professors, that we want to do more put-ups, not put-downs.
So you have 2 books in the hopper. Do you have another book in you?
Well, I do, because one of the things, being a single parent for many years, you've got to get a lot of things done. You've got to be efficient. So every time I prepared a speech over the last 18 years that I've been a Toastmaster, it's been something that I've chatted with Richard Lazare about. What is friendship? What is email etiquette? How do I participate in this organization or that organization? Or how do I communicate with somebody that I'm not really syncing up with? And out of all these different topics, those have become a series of speeches, a compendium, if you will. Next book, Unsquelched, Expressing Your Voice. Many of you have met my wife, Pascal. I love to tell this story. At the same time that I was looking to become a public speaker by finding my voice, attending Toastmaster classes, Richard Lazare said to me, "Why don't you learn French?" And I said, "Well, why would I want to learn French?" They said, "All the smart kids over in Paris, and the adults too, they speak English." He said, "Well, you're going over there so much, maybe you might want to learn French." So I'm turning 50. And I thought, oh my God. And we have the South Park blocks. I went down to the World Trade Center and a checkbook. I never carry a checkbook. And I signed up for French classes, and I'm writing a check, 20 lessons for $1,000. And I'm going, oh boy, what a ride this is going to be. So I'd walk up and down South Park blocks for 3 weeks. A, B, C, D, E. I'm taking 3 weeks to learn the alphabet, the prononciation en français. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's going to take me 3 weeks to learn the alphabet. Where in the hell am I going with all of this? So a few years into my French studies, this gentleman by the name of Carl Cook, East Portland Rotarian, said, "I know somebody I'd like you to meet. She's been divorced for 4 or 5 years, and I know you've been single for a while. I'd like to introduce you to Pascal." Well, she's the apple of my eye. She's a great gal. I met her here in Portland, and everybody thinks I met her, and then I learned French. But I learned from Richard, go out and do what you love to do, and those people will find you. Pascal admired the fact that I was finding my voice, and one of the ways I was finding my voice, in addition to Toastmasters, was through learning how to speak French. Now, she helps, but I take credit for taking great advice from Richard.
And you went overseas, right, to do intensive French lessons?
Yes, I did. But can I tell another story?
Yeah, you got all the time in the world as long as we don't run out of time.
Thank you, Chris. Many of us as Rotarians, one of the things that I have found is the real benefit is when I go out of town is I always go to a Rotary Club meeting. Little or few of you know, I've been to 13 or 14 international conventions in the last 24 years. I've been with Richard to Singapore. I've been with Jim Flood to Chicago, where he's from. But the long and short of the whole thing, I was across the street from the Louvre at this Hotel Regina, a nice 4-star hotel, and they have a Rotary Club meeting that meets there on Monday nights at 8 o'clock. Well, I've got these fancy clothes on, and I'm a Rotarian, and I thought, well, I'm going to go sign up for this gig. This ought to be a lot of fun. First thing I must say, this was 20 years ago, 40 euros for the meal. I went in, and there were 40, 45 people. They're sitting around, and eyes were on me, not just because I'm the guest, but I could feel they didn't have a program chair or a program speaker. So they looked over at me, and they said, "You're it." And I'm in deep thought. Turning 50, I'm not really good on my feet at this point. I'm beyond tourist French, but not much. And this elderly gentleman, I'm almost his age now, I got up to speak for 10 or 15 minutes. I couldn't believe it. Came back to sit down, looked at my plate, said, "Na assiette." C'est comme une piscine, swimming pool. So much sweat, I filled the plate. Then everybody got up and started asking me questions in French. And I go, oh my God, they understood my French. And I asked this elderly gentleman sitting next to me, I said, "They understand me?" He says, "Oh, you did great." I go, whoa. I came back, busting my buttons, tell everybody I knew, went back to the hotel down the street. You won't believe what I did today. And I came back, and some people came down to Beard's, where I was working on macadam. So we have a bunch of ladies here from Lake Oswego, and they're out and about, and they'd like for you to give a little history on why you do what you do. Well, no big deal. So I got up and started speaking English, and I haven't sat down since.
Terry, I just want to say before we go to questions, and there's going to be quite a few, I suspect, everybody likes free books, that I value our friendship. You've taught me a lot of things. You've taught me about sharing the sunshine when we sometimes get inside ourselves and forget to share the sunshine. You've also taught me that we can have playground scuffles and we're still friends.
We've done that too.
We've done that too. And you get through it. That's a part of being honest and forthright. So I appreciate the friendship, and good luck to you in the next few minutes here, my friend.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Terry Beard, Bill Durville.
Yes.
You are so involved in the East Portland Club. Can you tell us a little bit about why you joined this club as opposed to staying with that club?
That's a good question. I remember the Children's Museum. We had a committee, we were raising money to move the Children's Museum off the waterfront up to where OMSI used to be, up on Sylvan. And I belong to East Portland, and I started going to these committee meetings once a month, and I got to know everybody from the club that was an officer or representing in the district. And the long short of the whole thing, I went for 7 or 8 years. I went to both clubs on Tuesdays here and on Thursdays to East Portland. And Dick Wingard saw me drifting from Rotary in about 2010 and reeled me back in.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bill.
Hey,
Mr.
Terry.
Stack.
Terry, you've been a friend for 25 years, known you for forever, and one, appreciate your pay it forward attitude, your openness. It helped me tremendously when I was young, when we first met, and I truly appreciate that. My question to you is, I've gone through a similar experience, that cathartic moment where the aha moment where you can get in front of a group, you can speak. When was that for you, and how did that progress?
That's a great question. I joined the Arlington Club in 2001, and when I joined the Arlington Club, Wake Mac asked me if I would join the Toastmaster group. And here, many of us have heard of the Arlington Club. I'm sure most of us have. The safe harbor it is, and it was when I was a member there for 16 years at Toastmasters. And all of these business leaders, all of these leaders in the community that are members there, believe in personal growth and development, but most importantly for me, and I'm sure with everyone else that was there, is a safe harbor, encouragement, validation. These people were giving me what I hadn't received before, outside of professional therapy with Richard Lazaire. And with all of these members over there that are at the Arlington Club Toastmasters, the same thing is going on within our club. There's more encouragement. I mean, and we all thrive on that. And at my age of 70, and I'm proud to tell you, I love people telling me I did a great job, and if it's feedback and maybe it's to make me a better speaker, a better person, I'm willing to take it, but not constructive criticism, because that's not a really good term. But the safe harbor they created, I've got dear friends over there, I see them all the time. It's the place to go. Mr. Jim, my Chicago buddy.
Yeah, you know, as a matter of fact, I got to introduce Terry to the cheaper way to get to the airport. Rather than spending $100 on a cab, he went ahead and took the subway all the way out to O'Hare Airport for $2. Terry, mine isn't even a question, but one of the things, I just came back from Enterprise Academy this last weekend, and I'd like to recognize the fact that you very generously offered to fund the students that came from Enterprise Academy to join us for lunch as a celebration of how well they did at Enterprise Academy. Terry.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Mike.
Terry, I really appreciate you having founded the Toastmasters Club for our club. It has been a terrific experience for me. Through the club, I have made relationships with 15 or 20 members that I would not have but for Toastmasters. I highly recommend joining the club. If all of you out there could show up at least once or twice, I think you'd be hooked and you'd come back every week. Now, one thing, Terry, Toastmasters, it's pretty much an adult enterprise, and just because adults are, as members, would be nice to each other. Now, how would Toastmasters work? Do you think it would work in a grade school or middle school, high school setting where the children aren't as tuned in to being supportive?
Another great question. I recommend that we all become students of rhetoric. Scott, I'm sure you can relate to this. Reading, writing, and arithmetic, required subjects, K through as far as we go in school. Some of us take public speaking once or twice or maybe never. And I think it would be a good idea if it was part of a mandatory curriculum. I think it would serve us in many, many ways. And there's a gentleman that I met recently through Cleon. And by the way, Cleon Cox has brought in over 1,000 members into Toastmasters to help people find their voices. Cleon, our hats are off to you. Recently, Cleon introduced me to Eric Winger. He's a tech guy. I was quite surprised. Gem Talk out in Beaverton. He's been a Toastmaster for years. On Saturdays, Mike, he has a Toastmaster group for high school students every Saturday morning. Also, he has public speaking courses for people that want to learn English as a second language. At the same time, he teaches them public speaking skills. I was so taken with his volunteerism and what he does for a business, et cetera, I introduced him to Lake Oswego's currently retired superintendent of schools, Bill Korash, who readily said, come see me, maybe we can do something in the Lake Oswego school system.
What have you learned from your visits to France, and how can Rotarians here benefit from that?
I go to France frequently, and what do I learn by going there? Now, this can start an argument because I've done it in Toastmasters. I get to live in two worlds, and here Americans are, from my perspective, are much more aggressive with how they ask people questions. Going to Starbucks at 6 a.m. in the morning. How is your day going so far? From someone you don't know. In France, they give you a nice smile, they take your order, and they thank you, and you're on your merry way. So I learn a lot by going to France. I learn a lot by being here. And so I have developed a blend of what I've learned in France and the way the culture is there vis-a-vis what the culture is here. And I kind of merge the two. Another big thing that I do when I go to France is I go to those different parks and I read books. I talk to people, and the way I mirror with people, you're a psychologist, correct? Or psychiatrist? I see how I mirror with people and how I see things, and do I see things differently or do I not? Because if I'm not seeing things differently, that means my last 3 or 4 months in the United States, I was kind of living in a rut. So I use it as a checkpoint going back and forth to Paris to make sure that I'm moving forward.
Hi, Terry. I'm Rotarian Drew Henry McWilliams, club member. Is there something that our club's Toastmaster could do for a nonprofit or two with some of the adolescents that I think would benefit from this?
Absolutely. Thank you. We had, I think, Mike, you said 20 people. That's maybe our minimum that we get at Portland Rotary Toastmasters on Wednesday. I think Dick and I counted we had nearly 30, 27, 28 people. I would come to experience a Toastmaster meeting. It starts with us. And if you do it, your staff does it, the officers, the directors are involved in public speaking to enhance their speaking skills, it catches fire.
Ray, you get the last word.
Okay. I'm very curious how you've used your Rotarian four-way test, your ability as a speaker, and your entrepreneurship to help young people and these entrepreneurial projects that you've done. I see Nathan's here, but I'd like you to just take a minute and maybe explain how you've helped people by developing some entrepreneurial projects with them.
Nathan was very fortunate. He got a great start from his parents. So when I met him, I got to just be me, and I didn't have to try and remake him. That really felt good. He already had his voice. He's a great speaker. And the other thing that I like about working with Nathan, we've developed a great friendship. Thank you for coming, Carol, as well. But Nathan is 40 years younger than I am. So Mark, this is an answer to some of your question. I'm 20 years younger because of Nathan, and he's 20 years older. And if I'm willing to listen to him and he's willing to listen to me, it feels really good. And the other way that I work with entrepreneurs is that when other young people, millennials if you will, are with Nathan, they're saying, what's this guy got? Well, why don't you be quiet and listen a little bit? He'll learn from you, but he's not necessarily here to learn. But being clear, finding our voice, having these guardrails, these boundaries, when they're there, it's an environment where people can grow and go that much faster. Thank you.